That's why I say, oh Lord, again, oh Lord, be magnified forever and ever. Give thanks to the Lord for His good, peace and love forever, for He knows everything that exists in this world. That's why I say, oh Lord, again, oh Lord, be magnified forever and ever. As a family we got to learn to love one another, for joy, peace and love is a gift from above. That's why I say, oh Lord, again, oh Lord, be magnified forever and ever. As a family we got to learn to love one another, for joy, peace and love is a gift from above. That's why I say, oh Lord, again, oh Lord, be magnified forever and ever. His good, peace and love forever, for He knows everything that exists in this world. That's why I say, oh Lord, again, oh Lord, be magnified forever and ever. Magnified forever and ever. Be magnified forever and ever. Be magnified forever and ever. Amen.
Good evening, everyone. Ninjani Molweni Ndumadekwana. Blessed Sabbath. It's so good to be here with you. I'm sorry I couldn't be here throughout the day, but you know those days where you take leave but you didn't really take leave. So you're on leave but not really. So that was my day today. I was trying to catch up on work and deadlines, but we are in the house now. And I'm hoping that we're going to have a very good session together. This thing was not designed for people my height, eh? But it's all right. It's good to be here. I'm so glad to see the daughters of Zion gathered together to not only that, but to see you have come from so many different countries to come and worship Him. I don't believe it lightly, but I am convinced that women who fear God are capable of changing the world. And such that even when they fear the wrong God, they can also change the world. But as long as you're a woman and you fear a God, things tend to happen. So I'm very grateful and relieved that we fear the correct one. I'm not going to take a lot of your time. One of the reasons why I love wearing stilettos to the pulpit is because it limits nako. After about 20 minutes, your ankles are saying, sweetheart, we're not in our 20s anymore. Let's wrap this up and sit down. So they are a timekeeping measure. Amen. Amen. It's not just because they make me look good. They do, but that's not the primary reason. Okay. Our script reading for the day is going to come from the evening is going to come from the book of 1 Kings. 1 Kings chapter 16. Is there water somewhere? No, not that I can see. Okay. 1 Kings chapter 16. 1 Kings chapter 16, it's after Samuel, which I believe is after Ruth, which I think is after Judges, which I think is after Deuteronomy, which I think is after Numbers, which I think is after Leviticus, which is after Exodus, which is after Genesis. Yes, please. Yes, please. So 1 Kings chapter 16, I'm going to read it in the ESV version. Although I do prefer to read things in the Message, not because like the Message it gets to the point, you know. And if you ever, for some strange reason, are cursed to date a lawyer, things that lawyers really love is things that get to the point. So you must get to the point quickly. I'm not an advocate yet. Maybe one day we'll think about it, but yeah. 1 Kings chapter 16, verse 29 until the end of that chapter. And it says, Ahab, son of Omri, became king of Israel in the 38th year of Asa, king of Judah. Ahab, son of Omri, was king over Israel for 22 years. He ruled from Samaria. Ahab, son of Omri, did even more open evil before God than anyone yet. A new champion in evil. It wasn't enough for him to copy the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat. No, he went all out. First by marrying Jezebel, daughter of Ethbaal, king of the Sidonians, and then by worshipping the god Baal. He built a temple for Baal in Samaria and then furnished it with an altar for Baal. Worse, he went on and built a shrine to the sacred whore Asherah. He made the God of Israel angrier than all the previous kings put together. It was under Ahab's rule that Hiel of Bethel refortified Jericho, but at a terrible cost. He ritually sacrificed his firstborn son Abiram at the laying of the foundation and his youngest son Segub at the setting up of the gates. This is exactly what Joshua, son of Nun, said would happen. So we're told two things in this chapter: that Ahab becomes king, and that Ahab is the brand new champion, the top dog of sin. And he is the top dog of sin for two reasons. One, for the woman he marries. Two, for what he worships. One, for the woman he marries. Two, for whom he worships. And to make it perfectly clear, the person that he is being compared to is a man called Jeroboam. Jeroboam became king, and then he was worried that the territory over where he was king did not have a temple to the Lord. And so for political reasons, not even for religious ones, for political reasons, Jeroboam says, I'm going to set up temples in my part of Israel to ensure that the Israelites never go up to Jerusalem to offer prayers unto the Lord. In other words, what campaign, it's an election strategy to make sure that he solidifies political power by blocking the Israelites from ever going up into Israel. He made another center of the worship of the Lord, not even for religious reasons, which you cannot forgive, but you can understand, right? That somebody sincerely holds or believes in this God. He did it for political expediency, for political reasons, for the ballot box, for election night. He prevented the people of God from being able to worship God because he wanted to remain king. And God says that Ahab is worse than that guy. And Ahab is worse than that guy, not only for continuing in the worship of Baal, but for marrying Jezebel. You must be some kind of woman to single-handedly contribute to somebody's evilness index just by yourself. Not the people you killed, not the prophets you allowed to be married. No, just that you married this particular girl. Just that on its own, plus the construction of a shrine, and you are number one in evilness. By the time Ahab becomes king, Israel has abandoned the worship of Yahweh and for various reasons has begun to follow after Asherah and Baal. When Ahab takes over from his father Omri, he too continues, and not only that, he then marries this girl called Jezebel to become his wife. We are told a few things about this girl that Ahab has chosen. We are told that Jezebel is a princess, the daughter of a king, that she is from a country or a nation known as Jezreel. We are told that her father's name is Ethbaal. A little bit of external digging on Google also tells you that the king is not just the king, he's also the chief priest, responsible for interacting with and interceding with Baal. The new queen of Israel is not just a princess, she's a pastor's kid. Not like me, like a different type of pastor's kid. We're not in the same pastor's kid class. I went to Jerusalem High, she went to Samaria High, different, My teacher was Moses, her was some, different classes of pastor's kid. By the time we meet her again in 1 Kings chapter 19, or by the time we meet her in 1 Kings chapter 19 later on, Jezebel has not only encouraged the worship of Baal, she has institutionalized it. Over the years since her death, Jezebel's name has become synonymous with all manner of evil and harlotry. I think, though, that is an oversimplification. Because even though we associate her with promiscuity, she never cheated on her husband. Even though we associate her with spiritual unfaithfulness, she never betrayed her faith or her people. In the years after Ahab's death, approximately 10 years, Jezebel keeps living, and we are never given an indication that she took so much as another lover. Jezebel is the perfect believer. She just worships the wrong God. Jezebel is raised in the fear of this strange unknown being known as Baal. Not only that, but she grows up being trained in and observing the worship of this god through her father. Whatever it is that her father taught her, however it is that she was raised, stuck, because she believed in it until her dying day. Train up a child in the way that they should go, and when they are grown, they shall not depart from it. Jezebel's family took that very seriously. And so Jezebel comes from a family that is consistent enough in its worship that becoming the queen of another country does not change what they have taught her. Perfect believer, just worships the wrong God. Baal is not just a god, he is especially a god of fertility, of both land and of people. And so he is responsible for the rain and for the crops. In 1 Kings chapter 19, we are told Yahweh, Jehovah, has withheld rain for 3 years. Side note, God has this really fun habit that I really like whenever I see it, where he becomes really petty. And you show or you put an idol in his face, and then he resolves himself to be like, okay, me and your idol will go head to head and we will see who wins thereafter. I love that thing so much. It is so entertaining. It's very serious, but it's also very entertaining. In Exodus, when Jehovah says he will liberate the Israelites from Egypt, he says, I'm not only going to remove you physically, I'm also going to liberate you spiritually. Because just in case you think it was a fluke or a mistake, or you start coming up with alternative explanations for how you were redeemed from Egypt, we're going to make sure that while you're in Egypt, we free you from Egypt in your mind and in your spirit before we free you in your body. And so when God poisons the Nile and he makes frogs come out of it, he is challenging directly Osiris, the Egyptian god responsible for the floods of the Nile. And he is saying, if you're such a bad God, if you're such a big God, such a powerful God, surely you can turn the Nile back to the water that it was. You can put the frogs back in the water and make sure that they stop interfering. You can copy the miracles, but you can't return things to the way that they were. When the cattle die, God goes against Hathor, the cow goddess who symbolized fertility and birth. In ancient Egyptian mythology, pharaohs themselves were also considered gods. And so God says, I'm going to go after all the gods, including the human one who thinks he's a god. And so the Egyptians watch as their pharaoh is not only unable to stop any of the plagues, but is unable to stop God from coming into Pharaoh's own household. You see, if he's defeated by the fields, we can say, Hashem, Osiris betrayed him. If he's defeated by the cows, we can say, Hashem, Hathor defeated him. If he's defeated by the sky, there are justifications and explanations. But how are you going to let another man come into your house and take out your kid, and then still come out and say, I am still a god? No, you lost. And so God consistently comes up against other gods and other idols. In 1 Kings chapter 19, God also demonstrates again that Baal, who is the god of rain or fertility, cannot control even the rain. He holds off the rain not just for 1 year or 2 years, he holds it off for 3 years, and then he releases it again when he pleases. Number C, another thing that we see about Jezebel is that Jezebel gives lavishly to the growth and the development of her faith in Israel and Samaria. She has 850 priests. I don't think the Adventist Church has 850 pastors in SA, do we? We don't, no? We do? Or globally, for 6 billion people. Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean it to sound like that. My bad. She has 850 priests. The two gods, Baal and Asherah, have their own contingent of 400 priests each to serve half the kingdom that used to be. She ensures the constructions of shrines and temples and their maintenance throughout her time on the throne next to Ahab. She ensures that they're equipped with altars, with cows, with knives, with robes, with everything they need to do their job. She also ensures that they are fed. Concerned about creating or the possibility of allowing for 2 centers of worship, she also kills all but 100 of God's priests. That's a whole, we call this institutionalization. We call it institutional independence. It is not sufficient to simply say that we believe in a certain thing or in a certain ideal. We must create the institutional and governmental structures that allow that thing to continue even when we're not there. So for an example, I worked in the judiciary for about 6 years. And the judiciary has what is known as institutional independence. We want judges to be able to make decisions and rulings by being faithful only to the law and to the Constitution. And we want them to be able to do so without fear or favor. And so what we do is that we remove any institutional or systemic barriers to judges being able to do their job. And so we say that judges will sit in their position until they retire. And if you want to fire them, you are going to need 3/4 of parliament to be able to dismiss them. So you can't just fire them willy-nilly or for fun. Institutional independence. And so if a case comes before them that involves the president, they can decide independently because they know the president cannot fire them without cause. Do you understand what I'm saying? Then not only that, we make sure that they are paid well enough to sustain them and not be tempted to give in to bribery. Okay? And after we have done so, we make sure that after they retire, they are paid the same salary until they die. And this is to ensure that when you realize that I'm about to retire, and somebody comes in and says, if you decide this matter in my favor, I will make sure even after retirement you are taken care of. You can't do that to a South African judge because their retirement is guaranteed. We call that institutional independence. Even if you wanted to corrupt them, it's hard to do so because we have created the institutions to support them. Jezebel does the same thing. Jezebel says, I don't want the people of Israel getting confused about who is who in the zoo. So let's make sure we eliminate all of the other priests, or at the very least, make it dangerous to want to serve God. Let us ensure that they have all of the things that they require. Let us also engage in a massive recruitment drive. We're not only going to hire Levites. We're not only going to hire the people with the qualifications. We're going to hire any and everybody who is willing to be a priest of Baal or Asherah, to be a priest. They are going to be loyal to these gods because they think these gods are the ones that gave them employment. And so you get into the minds of these men that you have hired, and you infect them with this idea that they owe their existence, their sustenance, to Baal and Asherah. We make sure that even during the drought, when everybody else is starving, those priests are able to eat at my table and remain fed for those 3 years. The institution of pagan priesthood is protected from any external factors. Jezebel does not just worship Baal, she institutionalizes the worship. She creates the systems necessary. She provides the resources. She provides the oversight committees, the standing budgets and the armies, the line items, the auditors, the company secretaries, the charters, the governance bodies, the constitutions, to ensure that the worship of Baal prospers, whether she is there or not. Perfect believer, wrong God. Contrary to popular belief, Jezebel is a devoted wife. She loves Ahab. She denies him nothing. When he throws a tantrum for the farm he wants, she makes sure he gets it. Willing to research Israelite law enough to be able to corrupt it, to be able to accuse Naboth, enough to get him killed. The God he worships, she pursues, and she worships that God also. The abominations he creates, she decorates. The prophet he hates, she threatens to kill. Such that when her prophets are killed, the king, with an army at his disposal, lets the prophet go rather than killing him, because he knows the solution to his problem is at home where he left her. And so Ahab gets into his chariot. He does not engage with Elijah after Elijah kills the prophets of Baal. He says, no, I'm going to tell my wife, get your baby. And he gets home, and indeed he goes, yo, baby, you will not believe what Elijah did to your prophets. When they can't tell you anything, when they walk into the door, you're in a bad mood. You don't want to talk to anybody. You snap. You talk about your man in public. You embarrass him in front of his friends, in front of his family. You don't solve his problems, you add to them. You are a problem. Not that you solve them, you are one. You are not faithful. Other people know things that only your husband should know about you. There are even things that you do to your husband that you didn't learn from your husband, you learned from others. Ahab can walk into any room and know nobody has touched my wife. No one has seen my wife. No one has looked at my wife. No one can make moves on my wife. I can disappear from Israel for 6 months. I'll find my wife where I left her. She will not have moved or done anything else. Their marriage also just seems to be a fun, mutually supportive one. Babe, unyaka farm? Unyaka farm, baby?
Yeah.
I'll get you a farm, babe. I'll get you a farm. Yeah. You want your priests to come and eat at our house? Bring them, babe. Let's do a sleepover. They can eat here whenever they want. The people are saying no to you. Don't go. Why are you upset? No, baby, let me fix it. Let me sort it out. They're not going to refuse my husband anything. Anything my husband wants, I'm going to make sure he gets it. Anything my wife wants, I'm going to make sure she gets it. Princess treatment. Wire. Each one uses their resources at their disposal to ensure that the other one has what they need. So when Jezebel says, I need my priests to have access to certain things, Ahab does not hesitate to go to the treasury and sign the purchase order to make sure that they have that. Hallelujah, child. Moses complains about his wife when she calls him a bridegroom of blood. Abraham's wife is so impatient, she gets him another wife. Isaac's wife betrays him and helps steal her elder son's inheritance. How is the marriage of Jezebel and Ahab better than the marriages of the saints? How is it more enjoyable, more fun, more entertaining, more supportive, more loving than the marriages of the saints? How are you willing to marry a man who says, no, if you go to school too much, you're going to talk a lot? How is this marriage more supportive? How are you able to look at someone whose values do not align with yours and say, no, I am content to pursue this one? And be somebody who is supported. Jezebel doesn't do those things. Jezebel makes sure that before she marries him, she and him are aligned on certain practical things. And the first thing they must align on is the matter of religion and faith. Lona. You know, I'm just not sure God exists. I'm agnostic. I'm intellectually pursuing the probabilities and the possibilities of multiple deities and perfect believer, perfect wife, wrong God. Jezebel is a warning to us for several reasons. One, godless forces are not as lazy as we are. They're not as relaxed. There is a sense of urgency that we do not have. There is a consistency, a strength, a faith, a stubbornness in their godlessness that they're willing to hold on to. We cannot be outdone by Jezebel. God proves himself to us so many times over the course of the salvation story, but also in daily life. He goes head to head. He debases himself to the level of your idol and goes head to head with the idol. He goes head to head with your belief that it is education that will make you godly. He goes head to head with your belief that it is only in marriage that you will be a full person and not in the pursuit of his will. He goes head to head in your belief that the idol of having children is what will save you. He goes head to head with your belief that the idol of beauty is what will save you. He goes head to head with the idol of the belief that the BBL you got is what is ultimately going to save you. He goes head to head with the belief that you are able to, with your sexual abilities and gymnastics, sustain his holy marriages. He goes head to head with those idols and he proves himself over and over and over again. Baal could not deliver water and rain for 3 years. He only had the one job. That is all Baal is supposed to do, to ensure that it rains. Baal could not do that. And for 3 years, Jezebel held on and believed and trusted that in the end, her God would come through for her. Jesus proves himself on Monday. You're willing to betray him on Tuesday. God makes sure that the salary comes through the previous month. You're willing to commit to fraud the next month to make provision. God tells you that he is a husband to the widows. You're willing to betray yourselves with men who do not love you and will not marry you the next day. God gives you a job for 15 years. You lose it for 6 months and you lose faith in him and you refuse to believe. You have a beautiful marriage for 10 years. You have challenges in the 11th and you start hanging out with your Ben 10s and texting your old pieces. What it do, big head? How you doing, stranger? Haven't seen you in a while. Jezebel holds on for 3 years for a God who had one job and one job only and couldn't even deliver that. God proves himself on Monday. We sell him out on Tuesday. We cannot be outdone by Jezebel. Jezebel understands that faith without works is dead. And not only works, but good works, consistent works, thorough works, detail-oriented works, professional works, systemic and system-building level works. You have been church clerk for 5 years. Have you improved the way of getting announcements to the church in any way, shape, or form in those 5 years? You have been responsible for one children's class for 3 years. How do none of your students know how to memorize Bible verses? But you were there. You have been asked to serve on the church board. You are unavailable, but I know for a fact you have seen Bridgerton season 1, season 2, season 3, Queen Charlotte, and then rewatched them, but you don't have time for the things of God. You will sit for 3 hours for a 3D set of nails with floral detail, gelish, coffin length, shaped properly. But we don't have time for 20 minutes of devotion and worship in the morning. I got a wig installed last year for my birthday. Why do we do those things? And that thing sits here, you can't breathe, your nose is like flattened, and then they do the glue thing, and then why are we putting glue on our foreheads? And they put the glue thing, and then they put the band, and then they put the band so tight that it cuts off blood circulation to your head. And then you find yourself picking up your phone and texting your ex because you can't think, there's no blood flow to your head. You know? And then you will sit there while they cut it into layers. And then you'll sit there again while they color it the perfect shade of ash blonde and make sure that they get the highlights in, that the layers frame your face, and that it's 360 so you can wear it to the side. Right again, you want to make sure that everything is covered. And you will sit there for 6 hours. But a 30-minute lesson study is too much for you to do. If I ask you to tell me what Anthony said to Kate in season 2, Yabo? Do you see? Hey? You are the bane of my, come on now, and the object of all my, and you're moving to India, but it is not, every lesson study. Mpeng memory verse yasabata, not last week, the one that's coming tomorrow. Give me the Bible verse. Can you give it to me? Mara di Bibilita shonda rhymes it or na. Lead it inside and out. Jezebel understands that faith without works is dead. That you cannot claim to love God and not return the tithe that allows the work of God to continue. You cannot say you love children, pathfinders, you are not anywhere to be found. Adventurers, you are nowhere to be found. You cannot be willing to give that man 2,000 rand for rent because he doesn't have enough. But 500 rand just to get us some extra books and scarves and epaulets for the adventurers and the pathfinders. You complain and say it's too much. How is it that I return tithe monthly, but you guys can't budget it adequately enough to make sure that the kids have the stationery that they need? What are the systems that you have seen in the Church of God that require improvement and you have the ability to do so? How do you have a BCom honors with distinction, but the church is still using manual means of collecting revenue? How are you an expert in early childhood development, but we can't get the kids who are making a noise in church every day to focus long enough to have that session? How is it that you are an expert in multiple modes of learning and education, but the autistic kids or the neurodivergent kids in church don't have any support or assistance or help? How is it that you are a NICU nurse, a specialist in your field, and yet the mothers at church day in, day out spend their entire services outside because there's no one to help them with the kids. How is it possible that you're a labor law expert, but your maid is forced to come to church with you on Sabbath? And she is an Adventist. And the kids don't know that it's Sabbath, so they go to her because that's their other mom. We cannot be outdone by Jezebel. Perhaps the most terrifying thing of all is that you could do it. You could do it all. You could take care of the kids. You could do the Pathfinder classes. You could modernize the payroll system of the church. You could streamline our HR efficiencies. You could find a way of making payments for YAWM conferences from the phone. You could find a way of suggesting that, maybe we should get a Section 18 certificate for Meals on Wheels so that it's tax deductible at the end of the year, and that'll encourage people to start contributing into it. It is possible that you can do it all. It's possible that you can love your husband deeply. It's possible that you can love your children deeply. It's possible that you can wake up each and every single morning and be there from prayer band time until the time that the deacon locks the last door and switches off the last alarm, and still do it for the wrong God. It is possible to be devoted out of prideful reasons. It is possible to be modest so that you can dress the ones so that you can judge the ones that you think aren't modest. It is possible to wear dresses that are long and so long that you're not just covering your body, you're covering other things too. There's a temper you're hiding under that dress. There's gossip that you're hiding under that skirt. There's a mean tongue that you're hiding under the lack of makeup. Maybe just wear the makeup once so that, we solve it all. No, God prefers us natural. No, your heart and your face are the same. They both need some contour, some... Didn't pay both. It is not an indication of your virtue or your goodness. It is possible to love your husband because you want to show off to the ones that are single that they aren't really anything. That who are they if they're not chosen by these beautiful men? It's possible to come onto prayer bands so that you can spend some time worshiping in holiness. Gossiping in holiness. I would like us to spend some time this morning before we pray, interceding on behalf of Sister Zwonaka. I saw her at Marie Stopes the other day. I hope everything is okay. Ever heard those preachers who love giving examples about somebody and then they're like, no, it's anonymous, but they say, no, it was a young lady. She was wearing a black beret with an olive green jacket. She wears glasses. She has a black scarf on her right side. But I'm not going to tell you her name. My brother, it's late. And we do so to be able to do that. We want to be on the pulpit so that we can castigate and rip apart the people that are a little bit different from who we are. We want to be in children's class so we can be mean to the kids who are born out of wedlock. Or who aren't South African. I know I'm talking to somebody. It is terrifying to one day be standing in front of a God and say to him, did we not prophesy in your name? Did we not drive out demons in your name? We performed many miracles in your name. I sent meals texts every day on payday. I sent at least 10 every month. Meals to, what's the number? 39, yeah. I sent 5 of them every day. I sent all of those Meals on Wheels things. I came to each and every single YAWM conference. Matter of fact, I even volunteered to be Mrs. Nyama's intern. I was the one running around collecting speakers from the airport, making sure that the programs were printed on time. I did all of these things only for Jesus to look you dead in the eye and say, I never knew you. And that is the terrifying thing about Jezebel, that she did it all right. That she loved her husband and loved him well. That she was faithful to him and loved him well. That she remained faithful to the faith that she was taught as a child. She did not turn away from it. She never cheated on her God. She never cheated on her man. And not only that, she went above and beyond in ensuring that the worship of her God was institutionalized and done properly and done well. Even as those of us who serve a real God sit and watch and do nothing. It is terrifying that you can do all of it right, but if you get the one detail wrong of which God it is, if the God is marriage, if the God is a boy's affections, if the God is children, if the God is career advancement, if the God is pride, if the God is beauty, if the God is the approval of your family, if the God is your boss's happiness or performance ratings, if the God is money, if the God is beauty, we will stand one day before God having done everything absolutely right and be told that we were indeed a perfect believer. We just worshipped the wrong God.